All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. I am Jeremy. I will be leading our call today to discuss and answer questions as best as we can. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them up in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to take a look and discuss as whatever ways we need. So type up any questions you have in the Q&A, and I'm going to go over some of our usual starting intro stuff for any new viewers or anyone that's curious about what kind of things are coming up. Um, so, let's start with our YouTube channel. So if you're curious about anything that we post on YouTube, we do have our YouTube channel up. We post all of our Lunch and Learn content on the YouTube channel. So if you attended one or maybe you missed one and you're curious about what kind of questions were asked, or you asked a question and you want to, go back and see the answers again or anything that was discussed, you can always go to the YouTube channel. We'll post our Lunch and Learns usually the same day, later that day that they happen. You can check those out. We also put other content and things up there. So when we are trying to make new videos and things like that, just various useful topics and things, those will go on our YouTube channel as well. So if you're curious about any of those kinds of things, check that out. We've also got the Solutions Marketplace, great place for different accelerators and applications. If you're curious about some different things in decisions, you can easily check those kinds of things out. There's some pretty cool stuff there. And then we also have our events. Decisions.com/events will show off some of the different events and things that we have coming up in Decisions. So if you're curious about any of our future events or anything like that, you can go to decisions.com/events. And so events that we've got coming up here, we've got our roadmap reviews bi-weekly. So those are still happening. If you want to register for those and haven't joined them yet, you can definitely register here. We also have a webinar where Foster's is going to show off how they've utilized decisions in a couple different ways. And that is later in July, the 24th. So you can also see a couple things that aren't highlighted up here that are coming up as well. So July 1st is the next roadmap review, and there's also another one that is set up for August already. So if you're curious about any of those, check it out, decisions.com/events. On our YouTube channel, we got all our lunch and learns and things, but we also have a video on message queues that went up recently and external forms. So if you're curious about learning more about these, a couple videos, they're not too bad, 15 minutes, 25 minutes almost. So some pretty useful stuff. If you're curious, definitely go and check those things out. So with that in mind, we can flip over to decisions. And if we have any questions, I don't see anything yet. Um, but if we do have any questions, oh, I see a hand raised. We can jump to that first then. Helmet, I will allow you to talk. Go ahead and ask your question.
I submitted a question when I did the sign in from before,
Oh,
but it was short. I can say it
yeah, go
again.
ahead. Yeah, just go ahead and say it again.
So I have a drop down that uses a flow to source the elements that are in the drop down.
Hmm.
Um, and for some reason, I mean this one it retrieves probably over about 4,000 items. So quite a few.
Hmm.
But then whenever I pull that drop down, I get all the information. It looks good, and then right when I select one, um, it, it it slows down kind of the entire rest of the form, including some subsequent active form flows and stuff like that. I had seen that on some occasions when you do have large drop downs, you might want to utilize asynchronous abilities. I don't know if that's true or not. I feel like I just heard that in one of these lunch and learns, but yeah, I was wondering if there's a way that you're supposed to handle really large return drop downs in a form so that you don't get that slowdown, or is this something maybe the support team would be better for?
Um, maybe I can try a little bit of this, just to clarify. So the slowdown is happening after you select the option.
Yeah, let me run it once real quick on my end just to triple check, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Um, yeah, so I click it and then I do the drop down, and the drop down shows up. It has a ton of results. And right when I
Hmm.
make a selection, it takes a moment to select, a couple seconds, 4 or 5 seconds, and then I have subsequent, active form flows that do all sorts of other stuff, and they just seem to be much slower to respond.
And are those active form flows triggering off of the drop down that you picked or other
Um,
things?
some of them are, but some of them definitely are not. And so that's why I thought it was odd.
Yeah. It seems, depending on how you're getting the data, um, for the triggers, I feel like it seems like the only maybe slowdown is the amount of active form flows that you're running and or like what they're doing.
Well,
Um,
what's interesting is that now this drop down that gives me lots of options back. It's actually dependent on a drop down above it. And so, if I choose A in the first drop down, then I get A in the second drop down and it runs fine. But if I choose B in the first drop down and then I get B in that second drop down and B is the set of parameters that returns kind of that large data set,
mhm,
then and only then when I make that specific selection do the rest of the active form flows kind of slow down and poop out.
got it.
So
Okay.
I have probably about 10 active form flows on this, but it seems to be really tied to just one
Just
selection that I
that
make.
one
Yeah.
very large set.
Man, I wish I could show it to you, but yeah.
Yeah. So I can maybe make like a little bit of a suggestion for something you can try.
Okay.
And then otherwise I would think the support team would be better because they can really look at it and see like more specifically what's happening.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is, so there are some levels of asynchronous stuff you had mentioned that you could utilize
Hmm.
um, to try to like keep things a little faster and running them, but you are going to be a little bit limited if they need to output data, because that's the biggest thing about asynchronous processes and decisions is that they
Uh-huh.
don't output data. So, like for example, any subflow step in decisions, there's
Yeah.
actually a setting on it that you could change it. Um, where's it? This is more of a niche use case, but I can't remember where it is.
Well, so then if I'm using this, if I would, I'd have to do this in the flow, in the flow that actually supplies the drop down. So that would by default be
Right,
providing
you would
data, and
need
it wouldn't.
data. Like
Yeah.
here's a so like start linked flow async, for example, is a
Uh-huh.
subflow step that runs asynchronously. It only outputs the ID of the flow
Yeah.
because it doesn't actually output data.
Gotcha.
So you're limited to something like a run flows for lists running with the async
Run
and wait
flows
behavior.
for list. Okay. Is this
Um,
in version 8 as well, or?
yes, it should be in version 8 as
Okay.
well.
Run
But
flows for list.
the thing with this is more for like batch processing. So it would
Yeah.
take in a list of items and then do something to each item in the list and then output the list of items. So even then that might not really work what
Yeah,
you're
I don't
trying
know
to
if
do
that's
with
gonna
it.
work for me.
Um,
Well, so I guess my whole suspicion is like somehow that, when I pull this drop down and then I pull the list of all the elements in the drop down, does it load it into the browser memory and then that's what actually can slow it down? Like maybe it's not the active form flows, it's just,
oh, that's a good point.
once it gets to a top end of how much memory like I've been allocated in the browser, could it possibly slow down the rest of it?
That's definitely a good point. Very likely, it's very possible.
Oh, so
If
maybe
that's the case,
async
you might.
wasn't what I was asking about. What about caching?
Yeah,
Is
if
that
that's the
kind of
case,
the game
yes,
plan there?
there are definitely some cache steps. Now, I don't know off the top of my head which of these. I know we've added a number of various caching things and steps in like later versions of 9.
Uh-huh.
So in like older things, in version 8, you'd have to just search cache and see if
See
there's
what they
something
got.
good.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can clear cache and different things like that um, in different ways. So if you need to try to like, clear it after it gets selected or after it gets populated or something, that might help. Um,
Yeah, I'm struggling to understand how I would remedy the issue with the caching steps, but I feel like it is related to the caching steps.
yeah. So there might be something there. I think if you rather than maybe struggle with it and try to like mess with it, I would directly ask support, and I'm sure they'd be
Okay.
able to just take a quick look, maybe even just confirm if that's what it actually looks like, and they'll probably know the specific and easier steps to get right to the solution for you on that one.
Okay, yeah, I can I'll do that then.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem. All right. We do have another question from Jeremy in the chat. I'll let you, if you want to add anything else, I'll give you the opportunity to speak, Jeremy, but I will start making what you are asking for. Jeremy wants to know if I can demonstrate the new attached labels function in a vertical stack. So let me start to build up a form for that. And then if you want to add anything or what you're curious about, you can also talk. All right, vertical stack and attached labels. Layouts. I'm just gonna make this whole thing a vertical stack. All right, so if anyone's unfamiliar, in version 9, we've added attached labels now. So instead of having to drag in a new item and then add like a label separately or use the shift enter to add a label, now by default, whatever you make your data name, it'll automatically provide a label for that item. And then when you hit enter, it'll automatically put the label above the control. And if you shift enter, it'll automatically put it to the left of the control. So you have a little bit of configuration about where those labels are. And if you don't want labels, you can also just easily remove them by unchecking show label, and then you won't have the label appearing. Um, so otherwise, though, you can easily just add these things, and in a vertical stack, they should just slide up to the top. And based on wherever you put the labels should just appear in those positions. So let me just add a couple, and then I'm going to throw this on a flow to see the difference. I'm going to do a text box 2, and let's shift enter that so we can put a label on the side and see what that looks like. Let me throw a button here so it can have a pathway, and then let's save and throw this on a flow to actually see what it looks like. I don't know why I keep doing the A capital. Okay. Show form here. Grab my vertical stack. That's gonna bother me. I named the flow and the form opposites. Oh well. Okay. And then we run it, and I get this stuff up there. That's kind of weird. I don't know why that does that. Weird that you'd have to extend it. But it should, yeah, it just slides everything up top. And since the labels are attached to the like text box or number box itself, um, it just automatically puts them where they belong. Now, this seems odd that it makes it small like this until I expand it. I would have thought it would have fixed that automatically for me, but that's okay. Weird that that increases, and then if I shrink it, it doesn't decrease. Oh, it does a little bit. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So otherwise, I don't think that much of the functionality of the vertical stack changes that much, unless you have any specific questions or additional things you wanted me to try to show. It slides everything up. If I wanted to like hide a label or something, like if I didn't want this label to appear, it should just slide that text box or the number box straight up against the next item in the list. So if I do have like different labels hiding or showing or whatever, it would do that. Um, as well. And I know there's things like active form flows. If I made an active form flow for this, uh, form rules. I wonder actually if I don't remember the details on showing or hiding labels on a form control and how that works. I don't know if that's maybe something that might get a little weird, but I don't know why you would hide the label and not the whole box itself. That would be a weird and very interesting use case if that was the case. Number box one. You can hide the whole control, not necessarily the labels. But again, I don't know why you would want to hide just the label and not the actual control itself. Um, so there's no like specific things to labels. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. It doesn't change that much about it. Obviously, if you really did want like some kind of separate label thing, you can still drag an individual label here, um, and have that involved wherever you want it, in the process to be placed. And then that would take up, another space there. But again, it just slides everything up, keeps everything there. Unless there's like a little bug here or there, I don't think most of the functionality changes. And I believe we did a lot of testing with that before they released this feature, um, to check and make sure there isn't any odd bugs like this. But otherwise, yeah, it pretty much functions just like a normal vertical stack would.
Yeah, that's good. I was just mainly curious how the label on the left would look and how that would function.
Hmm.
I'm working on a project that I might need to push off some development till I upgrade to 9.11 or 9.12, so I have this feature.
Hmm. Got
Thanks
it.
for
Yeah.
showing me that.
Yeah, of course, no problem. And while I'm in here, Grant asked a question related to vertical stack, so I will just continue showing that. Grant's question is, what kind of scenario would you want to use a vertical stack? And that's a great question. So there are definitely a lot of them. The unique thing with the vertical stack is it keeps everything kind of like in line and in one place. Whereas with the grids, everything is organized by however that grid is trying to be organized. And so you're kind of like limited to how everything displays. So if I drag this vertical stack up and edit this grid layout, I can do a pretty nice demo of this real quick as well. So let's make this a bunch of rows. And I'm gonna basically copy this on here. So let's say I have a text box here and a number box right below it. And then I'll move this back to the top. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to emulate these two things with a quick active form flow to demonstrate this. But the biggest difference is that the grid, something like a grid, which is the default layout, everything is locked into place wherever you put them. So I have this text box in that first line on the grid. It is in that first line. It will stay in that first line no matter what. Same with the number box. They're in their specific spot in the grid. With the vertical stack and the horizontal stack as well, it keeps them in line with that position, but they can very easily slide up and down or left and right if it's horizontal stack into place to fit wherever they need to be. And so they can be very useful whenever you're trying to build something that is going to have that you want to like fill into place or you don't want to like leave gaps and things like that. And so if I have like an active form flow thing here, for example, actually, let me do this. I'm going to make some event buttons here. Show this. Okay. Um, okay. So I'm going to make an active form flow to hide controls and an active form flow to show controls. based on my, I need to check which one's which. Hide event button. This will be my show event button. Okay, active form flow. Trigger on the hide event button. Do hide controls. Edit this flow real quick. Form rules. Hide control. All right. Form data. We're going to hide text box 1. And like another hide control here, where we're going to hide text box grid. Done. Good. And then on my show controls button, we want another one for show controls based on the show control click. And this is going to be form rules, show control. Going to show that text box 1 and another one to show text box grid. Okay. Got that. Okay, so essentially so we have our two, like our vertical stack up here, our grid up here. If I hide the controls, you'll see regardless of where it is, the text box grid is going to hide this text box and its label, and then the number box grid will stay where it is because it's locked in place in that grid. And so that this will always just be an empty space on my form now, no matter what's there. If I have 150 million things inside this form, I hide this text box, there will be this empty space in my form here. And so the hide controls, stuff like that, are situations that hide controls, they won't appear. Whereas up here, everything slides into place. So then it doesn't look like something's missing. There isn't that weird empty space, that void on your form, and so it just looks a lot nicer. So this is one of the really simple and popular ways people use vertical and horizontal stacks for, is to just keep everything in place so that anytime they are hiding any number of controls, then it still looks nice and doesn't look like there's supposed to be something there when it shouldn't be. So depending on how you're looking at your forms, it just makes that kind of user design a lot neater and a little bit more comfortable for a lot of people. And I know that in the future, I don't know when it's getting released yet. I know we've talked about it, but the flex layout that we're adding, an additional layout, will work similar to vertical and horizontal stacks, where it'll keep everything slid into place with the additional elements of being able to increase and decrease the size of the components that you place to fit your form in different ways. But it's similar function. So then it kind of makes your forms look nicer overall, the make it a little bit easier to show everything where it belongs and that kind of thing. Since on a grid, there isn't really an active form flow to shift positions of something. And then obviously you could combine, you could place a grid within a flex layout and then build stuff on the grid, and then that whole grid as a unit would slide if needed. But yeah, grid's just very rigid. This is not as rigid, so you can easily display things and shift how everything looks in those stacks. So that's where it becomes pretty useful. And there's also a little bit less that you have to manage with trying to keep everything sliding it left and right and perfect pixels and all that kind of stuff, because it'll just be placed atop each other. All right. So far, that's all the questions we've got for today. We've been going 25 minutes, so we can end a little bit early if no one has anything else. I'll give it a minute in case anyone wants to add anything. All right. Well, if we have no additional questions, we will end it early. So, we got lunch and learns the rest of this week. I know U.S. holidays on Friday, but that doesn't affect our lunch and learns. So you will see specifically me because our other trainers are busy all week. But I will be leading our call the rest of this week. If you have any questions, come in. If you just want to watch, come in. We're always happy to help and show off some things and discuss whatever we need to. So hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure I'll see some of you later this week. Bye, everybody.